This is a paper, basically a torn paper collage from Desert Botanical Garden in Phoenix, Arizona. It's got some different elements. It's got a background, a middle ground. Here's a horizon line going across, and then there's a foreground. And it's sort of depicting a sunset scene of some of the natural native plants in Arizona. This is, there are different types of cactuses. I have them written down on the back, so I didn't forget. This is a Saguaro cactus, and they can get pretty tall. They take a really long time to develop these little branches that you see. The barrel cactus can get 3 to 10 feet wide and high. And then these are prickly pears, and they have these little offshoots, and then they get these little blossoms on them that bloom in the spring. What we're gonna do first, now I did this on I took a piece of a folder, old folder. You can use any kind of paper you want as a background. If you have a ruler, I have a horizon line, and I'm gonna draw that with a pencil. That's 3 3/8 inches from the bottom. So if you wanna pick an area that's about 3 3/8 inches from the bottom, could be 3.5, could be 3 1/4, you know, whatever you feel like. But what the point that I wanna make about a horizon line is it's gonna be straight across. It's gonna provide some continuity for our picture. And when I put that panel in, it's going to be a straight line, and all of this stuff is going to be behind it. So what I did, and maybe what you could do, is also organize your papers. I hope you had a chance to get some papers together. I'm using stuff that was painted, something that was newsprint or printed materials, and I have some magic marker and crayon on top. But this is like an orange construction paper, dark red orange. And then I just basically tore strips across, and I glued them down. And one of the things that you're probably gonna need if you have a glue stick is have something next to you. It's off the camera right here, but you don't wanna mess up your desk or your tabletop unless you have a piece of newspaper or another piece of paper under it when you're gonna be gluing. If you wanna pick a background piece of paper, it could be a folder, it could be any kind of paper that you want, it could be a different color too for that matter. I just happen to have a piece of folder, and I just tore it in half. So this is the other half of this one. So to get started, I'm gonna start laying in the colors. I'm gonna put this on top of it so you'll be able to see what I'm doing as we're going along. But my first color in the background is this dark red color. I happen to have some colors here, and I'm not going to be worrying so much about the if you don't have any glue sticks or construction paper, you can use any kind of paper. You could use glue too, but it's going to be a little bit take a little bit longer to dry. So if you see what I just put my glue stick on the back of this paper, and I'm just laying it across the top, just like that. Now, for those of you that just came in, I just drew a horizon line about 3 3/8 inches from the bottom with a pencil, and you can see that's right here. So I just laid in my first strip of color. I organized all my papers to go from these oranges and yellows to this middle tone, and then I put all my dark papers on the bottom. And then we'll do some other things with crayons and magic markers to accent things. And I'm just taking my paper and I'm tearing it. You can use scissors if you want, but tearing is fine as well. And if you see what I'm doing right here, I'm not putting anything, I don't have to put anything down yet. If I want to pick some lines to have running across, I can glue them after I get everything in place that I want to have in place. So if you don't have a glue stick, you might want to you can get your papers ready and you can start pulling them together. And you can always glue them at another time too. Or you can just watch and then take your time and do it another day. But right now, I'm going to just be pulling out different strips. And what I'm doing is, if you see, I'm making it a little bit wider on one side and bringing it down on the other side. My papers are curling up until I get them glued down. It's going to be a little bit of a problem. Now you see here that I have, right here, I have a highlighted color coming up across the top of this one. And then I have another strip of that color too. So I can make one more. I'm basically just making horizontal, you could call it stripes if you want, across the top. And then they're going to be in different tones of oranges and yellows. So if you want to just start clipping out colors and putting them down, you can. You can see right down here I have a little bit of yellow, and it's almost out of range. It's possible that you're not going to see this when we're done, but I'm going to throw some in anyway. We might want to just get started and glue these strips in, because that way you'll see exactly how they're going to stick. I have again, I'm taking my glue and I'm putting it on off the side on a piece of paper so I don't get my table all screwed up. So just putting it in right here, just gonna lay it down and sweep it across. I'm not worrying about, right now, I'm not worrying about the edges so much. You can see I have a darker rather than a lighter orangey pink color. And then this color is going to show through again. Looks like I have another strip right here. So I'm just going to put that in. And I'm going to apply that. Okay, so that's the second one I'm just laying down. And then it looks like I have a nice kind of bright orange strip that goes across. This one seems a little short to me, so I'm going to make a longer one. Now, if you want to see a little bit of white, well, this one's yellow on both sides. But when you're tearing your paper, if you tear it in different directions, you can get a white edge if you want to do that. So here's a yellow color, like an orangey yellow color. I'm going to lay that on top of this color right here, applying it. All right, so now I got some glue here, kind of messy. So right now I have the background sky is starting to take form, and I want to maybe add, I have one strip of this brighter color, and it looks like I could even put one here. Again, you don't have to worry about it being exact. It could be, everything will look different depending on how you do it and how you put it together, and no one tears paper the same way. So I'm basically just laying in some highlight colors so you can see my background. And then I do believe I had a piece of yellow. And this is what I mean when I say that if you tear it towards you, you're going to get this white edge. And if you tear it away from you, you won't get that white edge. So I'm just going to apply that. So far you should not worry so much about accuracy and just put these things down. So, okay, I've finished laying in strips for my background, and my next element is going to be what these are, simulated mountain ranges. And I just took a bunch of different patterns and I cut them out and put them in place. So you can do the same thing. I'm going through all of my yellow colors until I get to some brownish colors. I have, these are some, this is a page from a calendar, so you can have some dark browns and some oranges in here. You could use that. If you don't have any colors, you can just make them as you go. Here's something else. This is from just leftover paint painted on a piece of paper. You can do that too. So I'm progressing down towards my horizon line. So right now, here's a piece of paper I could possibly use to indicate a mountain range. Maybe I could put this one down. I'm just putting a little bit of glue on the back, and I'm just going to put it right here for now. Here's my horizon line, so I want to keep it above there. And if it's taking up too much of one side or another, I can always cut it lower than that and then just have that piece. So right now I have like a not a jagged edge, but kind of a rough edge. And if you wanted to capture more of the shapes that you see in Arizona, they have some really unique mountain ranges. And this is the Sonoran Desert. That's where this garden is located, in Phoenix, Arizona. So I have some scissors too. If you don't have scissors, you can just tear it. But maybe I'll just tear this little chunk out right here. And what I want to show you is that you can just do, let's see, we want to do like a stepped kind of mountain. So you go left and up and across and down. And if you don't have scissors, just use your hand and tear it with your fingers. So so I did that little clump right there, and I'm going to, I don't want this white edge. So what I might do is tear it away from me. So this time I'm not getting that. And I can just lay this in anywhere. So it's like right here, a little bit taller. If you want to go higher, you can. So I could put it right here. I'm going to take some glue and put that down. The fun part about doing this kind of collage is that you kind of get inspiration from when you're actually doing it. So that's one group of mountains, and then I have this little scrap of paper over here, and I could see what I wanted to end up doing is having a place right here in the middle for where I want my sun to go. So I need another group of mountains right about here, and again I can come down and make some geometric shapes, squares and peaks and jagged edges, etc. So I'm just cutting that out. And again, I'm not really crazy about this white area right here, so I'm going to tear that off. And if you tear it away from you, you don't get the white line. It's making a kind of a fun shape though. I kind of like that. So I'm going to keep tearing it off with little pieces, bits and pieces, until I have something that I like. So that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to stick this down with my glue and place it right about here. So now I have my mountain ranges, and now I have a place for the middle place for the sun or the moon, whatever you want. This circle I had in my scrap pile, it's way too big. So I'm just going to make it a lot smaller. And the way I'm making it smaller is I'm just kind of going around with my scissors, and I'm doing it by eye. It doesn't need to be perfect at all until I get a circular shape. You'll see it can be a little bit rounder right here. And that looks good to me. So I'm going to put my glue on that. And stick that down. And try not to make too much of a mess. There's a big mess right there. If you ever want to make sure your stuff is sticking, you can turn your paper over and rub the back side, and that'll help keep everything in place. So right now we have the background and the mountain range, which is the middle ground. We put in our sun or moon, and we're up to the part now where we are at our horizon line. So for the horizon line, as I said, we were using a solid piece of paper. Now, if you don't, or a straight edge to indicate the horizon line. If you don't have a solid background, you can use anything. I have, this is an envelope. You can use an envelope. You can just cut it across and then line it up here and glue it here. Here's a piece of paper from maybe another envelope or a magazine or something, and that has a little bit more texture, so you can use that too. Here's the other side, doesn't have anything. So let's use, maybe I'll just use this. Now it doesn't come all the way over, so I'm going to have to make some adjustments here. So again, I'm just going to tear off a piece. I'm not worrying about the bottom. I really want a straight edge right here, and this piece has to come off because it's white and I don't want it to be white. So when you see, like right now, I don't reach all the way across, so I'm going to need to put a little patch there. But that's okay. That's what the great thing about paper is it's very forgiving, and every part of it goes together to make a whole. So I'm just going to put some glue on this, and you're going to line it right up with that horizon line. So that's creating a big line that goes all the way across, and I have a little patch missing here, so I'm just gonna patch it. It'll all stick together when we're done. You'll see. So here I have this piece of paper here. I don't need it to go all the way over, and that's the horizon line. So we have our background, our sun or moon. We have the stripes, it's indicating the sunset scene. Here's the middle ground that has our mountain ranges. And then we have the horizon line, which is straight across the bottom. And for our next step, we're going to start putting in our foreground layer, which is a dark layer. So if you have any dark colors, I have this piece of paper right here. You can see that it's just an irregular shaped edge, and I kept the white line this time. So, and the background is kind of square. So what I'm going to do is pull it towards me this time, and that will give me that white edge. And I'm not really worrying so much about making it exactly the way I did it before. But what I really want to do is have a white edge and a dark foreground, so I can start laying in all of the cactus pieces, and I'll show you what to do with those too. Okay, so I'm going to put this in. Just laying that down. We can trim this later too. We can trim the edges so we don't have this jagged edge. Again, if you need to press it down, you can do that. So right now I have my original picture and I have this other picture. Now you can see these are all shaped elements, and some of these are drawn with magic marker. This Saguaro cactus is drawn with a magic marker, and this one is drawn with a magic marker, and actually it's a water marker, and I have some crayon over it. So we can decide what we want to do first in our picture. I think I'm left-handed, so I like to work right to left. You might be right-handed and want to do something else, but basically what we want to do, just so I can explain it, this is a Saguaro cactus and this is a Saguaro cactus, but this one's much smaller because it goes back into space. So that's creating a sense of space, and it's on top of what we have here, which is our horizon line, which is before our mountain range. Everything back here, you wouldn't really see that much detail in. But right here in the foreground, we have this big piece of cactus, and you need to use a straight edge if you have one. I happen to have a ruler right here, and you can, like, just by eyeball, you get this in the picture a little bit. I have it coming down about, I don't know, maybe an inch, 2 inches. So I guess going to mark it with a little dot right there. And then I'm going to make a straight line all the way down. And then that straight line is going to come onto this background. So I'm making a straight line, and I'm just curving it over and I'm going to turn my page upside down because then I want to get the other side. So there's the main trunk of our cactus. And if you have the marker, you could do crayon, you can use paint, whatever you want to do. I'm just coloring it in darker so I can see it. Now when you're coloring in paper, don't go into it. Always color away from it so it doesn't rip your page. And so that's the first arm of my Saguaro cactus. My next one, if you look at, I'm just doing this by eye, so don't worry if it's not exact. I'm gonna draw, it's like a J, kind of a J shape. So I'm gonna take my ruler, I'm just gonna pull it down. I'm gonna come across with this curve, and I'm also going to make the outlines for that one, and then I'm going to color that one in. Okay, so if you can see, I have another one over here. I'm going to make another dot, and I'm going to turn my paper so I can I want to make that space right here. So I'm going to make a space right about here, right about here. I'm going to curve around the top, and this is going to be another shape that curves in like that. So I draw two straight lines, and then I curve them into the main trunk. And it looks like I have one more to go. So this one I'm doing by eye. You can do it by eye too. Doesn't have to be perfect or anything. And I'm gonna be coloring that one in. So there's my first shape. And there is a shadow. It's gonna be really, really hard to, it's a very black foreground, but if you wanna put a shadow in, the shadow is just basically on an angle. If you think about the light from this shining on this, is going to make the shadow go behind it. So you can do that as well if you want. Okay, so that's our first Saguaro cactus. And then I want to put this one in. Now I I use watercolor markers for that. I have a brownish color. If you can see here, it's made by Crayola, and it's washable. But if you look here, I drew this in. Looks like it comes up. This is very dry. I have another one. If your markers are dry, just switch to another color. But I'm trying to keep all of my tones in the warm range. These are warm colors. Yellows, golds. Cool colors would be blues and violets. I'm just doing this by hand, but if you want to use the ruler, you can. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm just making a suggestion of this type of cactus. And you can kind of tell I went over it later with a crayon, and I'm not putting anything here yet because that shadow is going to be cast by a crayon. So right now we're going to continue with, this is the Barrel Cactus, and I used a round piece of paper, and behind it are these little shapes that I made with the darker colors. So if you have some dark colors, take your dark colors that you have collected, and if you don't have anything together, you can just color it in. Just pick a dark color and color it in yourself. So I'm going to make first I'm going to make this main shape right here. I want to make that's like an oval shape. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Again, we're not worrying about being perfect. Just taking a piece of whatever dark color you want to use, and I'm going to rip an oval shape. You can see this time I'm making I'm using the white as a highlight. So that's going to be my first cactus right here. And this is called a prickly pear cactus. At least it's supposed to be. Okay, and looks like it's a couple inches away from the base there. It could be close to there too. And I'm just gonna lay that down. So then I have this gold barrel shape. So if I was looking for a color, I would pick something a little bit lighter, but realizing that I'm going to be coloring over it with crayon and marker. So, but a barrel shape is basically kind of a round shape. I'm coming around, and if you have any kind of, you could use any color you want. Really, it could be green, it could be gold, it could be just lighter than the foreground, because I want it to be a little bit lighter. I want it to pop out. So I'm putting that right here, and it's kind of gold for now, but I'm going to be drawing this circle shape in here, putting that in, and then I'm going to be making, I think I'm going to tint it a little bit green. We can get back to that. Let's go back to this one though, and I want to finish adding some of these shapes, and I'm continuing to use the darker colors that I have set aside for the cactus shapes, and I'm tearing them into sort of an oval shape. It's going to be narrower. It's going to be narrower right here, and it's going to come around. Now this one looks a little bit too big, so I'm going to make it smaller. You have to use your judgment about how you want these to look when they're done. So I'm taking this, and that looks fine. I'm going to glue that down. If you want it to be behind, you can lift up your paper a little bit and stick it on like that. because it's still a little bit pliable and it hasn't quite dried yet, so you still have some time. And I see that there's another little piece here, and I can see how it's very narrow and it gets wider at the top. So I'm going to try to mimic that. Okay, so I'm making a narrower piece. I'm doing both sides so it's not such a straight edge. And I can see I didn't glue it down yet. I just want to see what it looks like. It could be a little bit thinner maybe, or a little bit smaller. So I'm going to play with that shape a little bit until I get it the way I like it. That seems good. So I'm going to glue that down. I'm glad I put a piece of paper down because it's got glue all over it. Okay, so I'm going to put this right here. Now I want to point out something, that the foreground is much darker than the background, and what that does is it makes the foreground pop out more, and it gives you a sense of space. So we just finished doing that, and it looks like there's another one right here. So you're going to take your black paper, your dark paper, whatever you decide to use for your darker colors, and I'm going to stick this one right here. Okay, I'm also going to tuck this one in behind, and what I'm doing is called overlapping, and I'm also overlapping this, and I'm cutting across this line. It's another space technique that brings things into the foreground closer to you. So right now we have this as our model, and then we're doing this one, and I can see that we started our barrel cactus right here, but we also want to put this other cactus in, and this other cactus is a little bit lighter than this one. I wanted it to pop out a little bit from the background, but at the same time, as it goes into this lighter color, it gets darker, and that's like a value thing. So if you first will start off with this main shape here. When I originally did it, I had it as a lighter color, and then I made it darker. So that's why there's like a split in it. And I could do that and put that down. You can see it's about an inch from there, and it's pretty much right on the money there. So I'll put this in. Okay, so you're going to put this down, and you can glue it or tape it or whatever you want to do. And then I have a couple of smaller pieces that I'm going to just come around with. I have these little scraps, so I'm just going to use them up. Don't worry about just think about, when you think about a prickly pear cactus, which is what this is supposed to be, they usually have these flat surfaces, and then they sprout like little branches that come off of them, and they call them prickly because of all cactus has spines on it that can be very painful. Just put that one right here. I don't like how it's coming forward on the front of the cactus. I'm just going to tear that piece off, and so it's almost right at the edge of it. And then if you see here, I have like these, I'm going to call these arms. This is another section and another section and another section, so you can do the same thing. I'm just looking around for a color that I can use. I wanted it to be a little bit lighter than the background. Something like this might be good. So I have, let's see, I'll just rip a shape. Whatever I'm ripping, I'm thinking about the shapes being almost like a teardrop. If you look at it, it's like thick on the bottom and thin at the top. And the thin part is what is getting connected to the base of the cactus design. So my fingers are really getting gluey. And I'm gonna put this right about here. And you can see how it's kind of way too light, but at the same time, when I go over it a little bit with some magic marker, it'll be better. And I'm gonna make these other ones that come up, I'm gonna make them a little bit darker. Don't even worry about making the shapes. The fun part is that when you just stick down paper, you can turn it into anything. So here's the next one. I'm gonna stick this under slightly, and then I'm gonna put one more over here. And hopefully, let's see. Yes, I think I'll put it right there. So that will be the last one for the prickly pear cactus. Okay, so we have prickly pear cactus, saguaro cactus, barrel cactus. The barrel cactus and these other ones need some work. So one of the things that there's one up here too. I'm just going to draw that in with a magic marker. So there's that. One of the things that these prickly pear cactuses have are these little tiny buds. Now, they're very pretty in full color, but because we're dealing with these as a silhouette, it's not quite the same thing. They're going to be very, very dark looking, but it's just to project the image of what they actually look like. And I'm going to put those on all of my little prickly pear cactus branches. Okay, so let's see if we can simulate these ribs. I'm using a black pen, and you can use another color if you want, but what I'm doing is I'm making curves. You can see that there's a curve, and I'm coming around. The shape of the shape of the cactus is a curved shape. So what I'm doing is I'm mimicking that curved shape going around, and I'm also going to outline this circle a little bit. I don't have a problem if it's dark. And the other thing that I want to do is introduce some color. I have this is where I start getting involved with my crayons, and you can see that I'm just really taking the crayon and coming right over it. I'm not worrying about filling in lines or anything like that, but it gives me a sense of a tint of what the color might actually be. And the other thing about this kind of cactus is it's got these little spikes. So I'm just gonna put those in, and they could be on these lines here. And I'm using a magic marker to do that too. So that's for that one. Now, this obviously this is a lot of the color of the background is coming through there, and I want to make that darker, and I also want to cast a shadow. So I'm looking for it could be any dark color. It could be purple, it could be a blue color, and it could be a brown or a black color. So let's see if I can pick this purple here as an example. And I noticed that I just really basically scribbled, and depending on your paper, I can see that it's not really working too well with the paper I have chosen, so I'm going to go back over that. But to draw the shadow, again, I drew this shadow going this way, and I'm going to do the same thing with this one. It actually might be a little bit more accurate to go this way, so we'll try that way. And what's going to happen is it's just going to create a shadow for that line right there. And I want to make this a little bit darker. So I'm just going over it. I'm having, it's not exactly easy to color over this on top of all these pictures, these colors, but that's fine. So now I have that done. And I have also, I'm casting a shadow over here as well. So I'm just going to make this area a little bit darker too. And now what I want to do, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but here's the original one. I darkened this up to make this really stand out more. And you can use I use a dark red or a brown or any kind of darker color that's going to make this pop out from the background a little bit. That's not working too well because I'm using a really shiny piece of paper right here, but you could kind of get the idea as I'm coloring it in that it's getting a little bit darker and it's popping out from the background here. And I can do the same thing in different places if you want to make them pop out more. In this cactus over here, I have basically just laid in with black. You could take any color that you want as well. This looks like a blue color, and make it a little bit darker so it pops out more. So for the final elements that you're adding is just after you've glued all your papers down, you can start having some fun with just putting different textures on, different colors. I'm looking for something that's dark to go. Again, I'm just finding purple. Purple and yellow make a gray color. So I'm trying to make this a little bit darker too. And just not even worrying about, I'm just touching it with a little bit of color. You want to make this a little bit more purple. If you want to make something, a little bit lighter, you may be able to go over it with a lighter crayon. Doesn't do too much, but you could do whatever you want in terms of texture on your picture. That's pretty much it. I still would like to see this one made a little bit darker, if possible. I mean, my light's getting it in a specific direction, but ideally, going back to the main principles of this whole thing, is we have our sky is horizontal strips pouring with paper in the same value. Like it's a darker orange and then a lighter orange and then yellower orange and then brighter yellow. And so I just pasted those across, and I got some midtones and basically tore out different shapes. I did use a scissor for here. And then we had our horizon line, which is like a solid tone. And what that does is it gives the picture a break, because it's a solid shape without a lot of interference. And then I tore papers to make my different cactuses. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Arizona. It's a very pretty state. And this, I would like to go to this garden someday. It's a beautiful botanical garden with, let me read you what it has. The Sonoran Desert is in the southern third of Arizona. It's 50,000 plants, 4,379 species, and it was established in 1939. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. If you're ever out to Phoenix, you should check it out if you can. But what's the most amazing thing about it is, like, it's so different from the stuff we have here in New York, where I am right now. It's New York is a totally different landscape. So what this is, it really captures the essence of, obviously, what would be so much more beautiful in person would be this desert scene. Oh, that's fantastic. You did a great job. That's beautiful, actually. Anybody else? Anthony, Nancy? Very nice. That looks great. And those are and oh, that's really nice. You guys do some great work. I really think you really got the essence of this collage thing. What's fun, what you could do also is, if you like working with the paper and glue, you could do other projects. You could take a different landscape and do something else. You could even do your own backyard if you want, and just use the torn papers. Like I said, if you want to save papers from calendars and envelopes, or paint your own and then cut them out later, it's a real fun way to make a picture. So I hope you enjoyed it. I think that the Botanical Garden for the Desert Botanical Garden in Phoenix, Arizona, is a really neat place to go for a vacation if you're ever out that way. And again, I'll just talk a little bit about these cactuses. They don't achieve this size until they're about 50 years old. And I guess that makes them really special. And they can get to be 15 to 50 feet high, these cactuses right here. And then we have the prickly pear cactus, like I said, is these prickly pear cactuses, they can get to be pretty big too, but not quite as big as these guys. And then there's barrel cactuses. There's more types of cactuses. There's a teddy bear cholla, if I'm saying that right, cactus, which looks more like fingers and arms. And there's like a million different species, but these are the kind of the main ones, the most popular ones. The prickly pear cactus, which is these right here, can get to be 2 to 6 feet tall, and they have a 6-foot spread, so they can get pretty big too. I guess the older they are, the bigger they'll get, and eventually they'll take up a lot of space. I mean, I've had these at my house. I've seen them and grown them, but they only look small in a container or tray. Most of us in this area only have cactus as house plants. We don't have anything actually growing outside. But it would be kind of fun to have this kind of a garden that's based on really hot sunshine, and they have these protective quills on them to prevent animals or any predators from getting at them. So they're built in with some kind of protection, and they're very, very, very pretty.